I look recently where my wife needed me emotionally, and I was struggling to provide that because I was going through my own things.
Your own stuff, yeah.
What was I going through? I was beating myself up for failing her as a husband while I'm failing her as a husband.
You can be a manager, right? Go spanning. When you come home, you're a servant. That's who you are, bro. And not because you've done anything less.
No.
That's what you've been called to.
There's no better way to show strength than to lead a person like this, make sure that they flourish, and still feel content with your manhood and your masculinity.
Sure.
1, 2, 3, 4.
What's good, beautiful people? Welcome to Two and a Half Husbands, where we celebrate becoming better husbands.
It's 2.5, even though there are 3 husbands, and that's because at some point, one of us, if not all of us, was not fully the husband that we were supposed to be.
And that's why we actually come here on a weekly basis to discuss some of the issues that we face, some of the issues we are seeing around us, and we hope that the journey that we started with you and for you is going to benefit you,
and yours.
Hallelujah.
But yeah, man, speaking of the past week, being a husband and all of that, I think leadership is something that I found particularly difficult. And I was thinking a lot about it by myself last night.
Yeah.
When I was just gauging, I mean, I've spoken about this before in terms of being a husband, leading. And I was just looking at the criteria that I have set up for myself. Be it inspired by God, but maybe some personal aspirations. And I'm like, there's so much work that needs to be done, bro. But at the end of the day, I always then come back to, Bila, what is male headship?
It's a good question.
Actually,
streets,
9
internet,
months
please
versus
tell
9
us.
years.
Hey, if you haven't figured it out in 9 months, Mvanaka,
No, if you haven't figured it out at 9 years,
my point exactly. Where are you still going?
sharks.
Shapa you saying?
No, you tell me. Father wisdom, father time,
Before we
white hair.
we get to father time. You still fresh.
Yeah, man.
What did you think this thing is?
Bro.
And how is it looking like in 9 months?
Shucks, bro. I like that you asked that because going back to, I think it's a conversation we had earlier this year when we came to you guys when we were going through some challenges with expectations not being met and all of that, because I think it's around the same conversation.
Yeah.
But I thought male headship and leadership is structure. It's like we frameworks. Yes, thank you, Grace. It's frameworks. You know, this is what is, and we play within this. You know, why are you outside the frame? Why there's nothing outside the frame?
Yeah.
There's a Garden of Eden, and you don't in the garden. You must be in the garden. So that's what my mind went to when I thought about leadership. Like, I'm supposed to set the framework, I'm supposed to set the structure,
Yes.
and I'm supposed to guide my wife as we follow that structure. Yo, now I'm just like, it's battle rap, bro. Like, you get there with you know what you want to say, but based on what your opponent is saying, like, you have to
rebuttal.
You get what I'm saying? Like,
tough, bro.
it's been a challenge, bro. And it's messed with me personally because I love structure. Doesn't mean I always follow it. But I'm like, my mind works with structure, principle, framework. You know, there are demarcations.
Hey, come on now.
This is where we don't. Yo, man, getting married to a person that has as much color as my wife.
Getting married to a person, that's just
Actually.
full stop.
Actually. But for me, bespoke to me, I'm like getting married to my wife.
No, 100.
Like, she is. My wife is. I honestly think my wife is preparing me for parenting, bro. Because she has all this energy, all of this excitement, all of this ambition.
What are you saying about your wife now?
My
Are you
wife.
parenting your wife? You're not husband.
No, man. I'm saying
Boring, man.
she's preparing me for parenting in the sense that I need to learn to look beyond myself.
Sure.
Which is a point that I'm going to get to about
Sure.
why I'm probably not leading. But I'm like, she has there's so much that I know my wife is called to do.
Yeah.
There's so much she wants to do that I keep discovering every single day. And I'm like, I'm struggling to keep up, bro. I'm struggling to keep up with my wife's inner child. Let me put it that way.
Your wife's inner child.
My wife's inner child, no.
Mudim.
My wife, I know with me, she's trying to still reach out to my inner child and trying to get him to come out. And she's doing a lot. But with her, I'm like, yo, there's a ball of energy and a ball of excitement about life.
And that thing is
And
tripping
this-
up your leadership.
Bro, yeah. Because I had an approach to
Yes.
how I'm going to lead.
Yes.
And I didn't cater for the nuances.
Yeah.
I was just like, no,
Yeah,
there's order.
Yeah.
There's the force of gravity doesn't
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
You know, the sun is where it is, the world
Yeah.
rotates. Like, and it doesn't help that I'm from a scientific background. So I'm like, it's principles, scientific method.
So
steps.
maybe let's dial back a little bit. So male headship or leadership. We had an episode on submission, which was contentious.
Yeah.
Still, I mean, just generally, that topic is a hard one for most
Yeah.
people. We have sisters. I don't know if they confessed to you, but two of them confessed to me, who said that they religiously watch our podcast.
Yeah.
You know who you is, but they were like, till today, they haven't clicked play on that episode.
Legit.
Yeah.
But it's because they know. Because I mean, if they are our sisters and it is who I'm thinking of, they know what we're gonna say. And it's one of those things that they wrestle with.
So, yes. So the reason why I even bring that up is if they're wrestling with the truth of submission,
Yeah.
I'm not calling it a concept,
No, it's the truth with a capital T.
right? They're wrestling with that, right? And yet they experientially, if they're not married, if they would get married today, I don't think that they would fight against what biblical submission is. But they still frank about their feelings of resistance towards that.
Yeah.
So I would even assume that there's probably a lot of resistance when it comes to the truth of male headship. Like, we live in the 21st century, things have changed.
Yeah.
Women are CEO, they assume
Give a buzz, babe.
they assume positions of leadership in various
They're
capacities.
entrepreneurs. They build their own industries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would assume that there might be a level of resistance towards the truth of male headship.
Sure.
And maybe it's worth unpacking what that is first.
Yeah.
And then get into obviously what that looks like for us at
Yeah.
an individual level, and then respectively with our marriages or wives. Maybe start there, right?
So I think when I look at the people we look up to and the people I know we learn from when it comes to biblical headship and all of that, they wouldn't struggle throwing out a definition that is well thought out, that is comprehensive, that is concise. But I don't know if I can provide the same in this conversation. If anything,
For you, bro.
for me, I think I can break it down and
Yeah.
we can have a discussion.
Yeah.
So for anyone that is expecting a definition of male headship is when a man, I'm like, I'm not there yet.
Yes.
Again, they would have seen from the titles, 9 months versus 9 years.
You are married, though.
Yeah. Fair.
So what are you doing, Prince?
So,
What is it that you're doing now?
bro,
And while you think about that, which I'll answer as well, does your wife agree with that?
oh no, she can but not agree with it. she cannot agree.
So what is it? What is male
Bro,
headship in the Twana household?
Who in the Tshweu household?
Tshweu household, sorry.
If there are people writing notes,
Yeah.
male headship. This is the only thing I will give definitively, right? Male headship is giving.
Sure.
Giving, bro.
Sure.
Giving. Give. You just give.
Sure.
Just,
Sure.
you keep, because that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
I can try substantiate it from my worldview,
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah.
like, it feels like giving,
Yeah.
bro. And I say that because when I look at when I am not exercising my male headship, I am not giving. The times where I struggle with male headship are the times where my self-love is on its highest.
Yeah.
It's on its peak.
Yeah.
That's when I'm like,
Feeling yourself.
oh, good Lord. When I'm feeling myself, when I'm prioritizing myself, that's when my male headship sinks, bro.
Yeah.
And I say that intentionally because not only because of what's happening in the culture in terms of the ideologies that are coming up about self-love and all of that, but also because I'm like, that's essentially what I've come to learn about myself, that I just really love myself, bro. Like I the sooner I let go of the love that I have for myself, how much attention I pay to myself, the better for my wife.
Sure,
You know?
100.
So again, if anyone is taking notes, male headship, according to Prince, is giving.
Dope. And your wife agrees fully.
She can, but not.
And your wife submits to that.
Which woman is not going to submit to a man that's giving? Like a man that just gives, that just gives of his time,
Yes.
gives of his energy,
Yes.
gives of his money.
Yes.
Listen, bro, that's when she submits. When she sees me giving,
That's dope.
she's weak. I get so
She's
weak.
weak.
In the knees. I cannot- She's weak.
That's fire. That's fire. Dog, yeah. So a lot of questions are still racing in my head. You know, why would we? And it's a bigger conversation. And I said this when we did the submission thing. You know, why should it be that those two things, leadership and submission, are assigned genders? You know, so why is submission exclusively for women, and why is headship or leadership exclusively for men? Right?
Yeah.
My simple answer to that would be, which I said in our previous episode, and
submission.
I think I'll reiterate this here. If it's not that way, this thing called marriage is not going to work, right?
Scaffolding.
Yeah, it's just
Hashtag
it's not
scaffolding.
going to work, right? And already, just even saying that, there might still be some resistance, which is fine, but we have time to unpack what we mean by that, right?
Yeah.
But it's not going to work, and probably the easiest understanding of why it's not going to work is because of our design.
Sure.
You know.
Sure.
Again, it has nothing to do with value, has nothing to do with worth, it has nothing to do with importance, but it has everything to do with design.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with the order that flows out of the design, right? So I am not a woman, right? My wife is not a man.
That is such a loaded statement in today's day and age.
No, 1,000. But I am not a woman.
Sure.
I don't identify as one.
Yeah.
Even if I did identify as one, if I'm speaking about design and order that flows from design, that would have implications if I would suddenly identify as a woman, right?
Sure.
It's fine. We can talk about that some other time.
Yeah.
But because of order and the order that flows out of design, my wife has to play the role that she's been called to by the person who's called us into marriage. In our case, it's God, and I am being called by God to assume leadership. And there's things that marriage will work out of us
Yeah.
in our respective genders,
Yeah.
that if those roles were swapped, the things that were supposed to be worked out will not be worked out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If I would submit.
Sure.
Maybe let me unpack it further, right? So men are generally passive, generally, when it comes to most things, but particularly in marriage, right?
Sure.
That's why we have the society we have,
yeah.
right? That's why we have...
Which is interesting because you get to the marriage by a man being active.
Yeah.
But
By pursuing
once you
and
get-
running
yeah, yeah,
after. But once you get in,
now you chill.
generally dudes tend
Shucks, bro.
to chill, right? And obviously that is influenced by many things, right? So I'm thinking of the submission episode we did,
Yeah.
and how there was, I think, a pushback, and even though I think we were very clear on why we were speaking about submission in that episode, and if I'm not mistaken, the thing that at least we were trying to get at will be emphasized in this episode, and the thing is men being passive and men not leading,
Yeah.
men not giving,
Sure.
and therefore making it hard for women to submit. Right?
Sure.
Does it mean that women don't need to submit if their husbands are passive? It doesn't. But does it make it hard?
Hella
Proper hard.
Yeah.
Right? Does it make it feel like a chore?
Yeah,
Does
yeah.
it make it...
Does it suck the joy out of the marriage?
Bro, is it tempting to just think, yeah, see, this thing is just a duty and I'm just doing it because now I've tied the knot.
Yeah.
It does, right?
Yeah.
And when I was speaking, I'd referenced Ephesians 5, and there's 10 verses that speak of the husband loving and the wife submitting. 2 of those verses are for the wife, but 8 of those are for the men.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And the reason for that is Paul had the same heart that I think we had in that episode, which is, and especially for him in his culture, that would have been radical, right?
Oh, we had the same posture as Paul. Just
Sure.
For those who are like
hundreds. But in his culture, it would have been a very radical idea for him to spend so much time calling out the men, right? In a culture where men were seen
bro,
more than women,
yeah,
where men were championed more than women, right? And
where
for
they were
him,
valued like
hundreds.
yeah.
And so the thing he does when he's writing that, right? He's not saying, "Yo, let me talk to both men and women simultaneously." No, he clearly breaks it up, right?
Yeah.
Talking to the woman. Yes, men in hearing, right? While he's talking to the woman. Yeah, they're there, right? He's talking in the presence of men while he's speaking to women.
Yeah.
But then he also does the same thing for men. He shifts and he speaks to them directly. 8 verses, right?
Sure.
And the thing he's doing is saying, you dudes are passive. You dudes are sleeping. You dudes are abusing the authority that God has given you to lead, right? And that kind of leadership that you are called to is a giving leadership.
Sure.
It's not a leadership that sets itself
Bro.
up as the most glorious thing, as though it's supposed to draw attention to itself.
Yeah.
But it's a leadership that exalts. It's a leadership that champions. It's a leadership that uplifts those God has entrusted it with, right? So submission is supposed to happen. You're a woman, you're called to it. But the thing that we were emphasizing, which is a question, and I'm addressing the question that was asked as well, right? It's not to say that if your husband is not loving, your husband is not giving, your husband is not leading sacrificially, that you shouldn't submit.
Yeah.
But it just helps.
Sure.
It just sets up the context and the environment to allow for that submission to be exalted, to be seen, to be championed, so that the call over the wife can be fully realized, right? So I'm like,
sure.
If we're gonna at least now speak about male headship, I think those things need to be set up front. it's not a matter of importance. I'm not more important than my wife.
Yeah.
In God's eyes, I'm not. Right? I'm not more important in our family's eyes. I'm not more important in our eyes between me and her. Right? I'm not more valuable.
Yeah.
I don't have a bigger purpose compared to hers in relation to her purpose. No, that's not what it means. But again, I think it's a matter of design. Right? And the order that flows out of that design. There should be a structure, which is what you spoke to earlier on, which I want us to double tap on now. You know, when you spoke about you setting the structure, the framework, the guardrails of what your family is going to look like in the family culture, and so that order flows from our design as man and woman, right? So I think male head. We have to put those things up front.
You have to preface the conversation with
as we continue chatting about what it practically looks like for us. Anyway, I'm saying a lot.
No. But I think you've mentioned some valuable points, and I think it's good that we started the conversation there, because I think it will, similar to headship and submission or loving and submission, I'm like, it allows. It creates the right environment to have the conversation. The same way loving and submission create the right environment for the marriage to flourish, you know? And that's why we had the conversation in the tone that we did when we spoke about submission in marriage. What does it mean? What does it not mean? Because if anything, we're trying to show that the structures that have been put in place, the guardrails that have been put in place, are there to make this thing work, you know? When I look at my own interests, I look at maybe cars, and I'm like, you can't say that the one spark plug has no value in a car.
100.
Because as small as it is, you don't look at cars and see spark plugs, but you remove it, that thing might not go very far, you know? When I look at the culinary arts, salt is not something you see in food, bro. Pepper is not something you see in food.
But if it's not there,
like it removes the beauty from the experience. So it's good that we started the conversation there. But then to kind of bring it closer to home,
100.
Because I started with saying it's giving, and I'm like, the times I've realized that I don't think I'm doing this thing justice, as when I was not giving, at least not to my wife or to the marriage. I was giving to myself. You know, those are the times I prioritized myself. And I look at the past week, and I could write a book of how I feel like I failed as a leader. And those are the times where I was content. And that's it's a very, hey man, internally it's tumultuous.
Hey,
I'm like,
it's a horse,
internally, like you're like, I was content, but I was not being the husband that I was called to be. I was content because my desires were met. My comforts were met. But I was not being a husband. You know, be it like right now, for example, I'm taking a break from like visual media and whatnot, because I was like, I need to clear my mind. I need to spend time in prayer. And I'm like, yo, man, I struggled yesterday. My wife came back and she was like, how's your day? I was like, yo, bruh, I am sorry, dog. I watched soccer, bruh. I watched soccer. I watched Netflix. Yeah, because I mean, again, structure. Started the month, I'm like, babe, this month, let us not do this because we want to. Yesterday was just like, nah, bro. Just take a chill pill. And in that moment, I think I was addressing my comforts. I think I was loving myself. I think I was being content with what I want for myself. And in that, I mean, by God's grace, my wife can extend grace, right? But in that, I do think that my headship and my leadership to my wife could have been a bit stained. You
went against your own.
Yes, when your own structure. When a frameworks.
Hey, man.
So, yeah, bro. In terms of leading, I would say for me, the biggest thing has been giving and learning how to give unconditionally. Learning how to give, not of myself, but of God. Because the one thing I did realize is, obviously, if I'm not plugged into God and my relationship with God, if it's non-existent or if it's struggling, then you end up with things like, my cup is empty. You don't have a cup.
do you mean you don't have a cup?
You don't have a cup in the sense that you don't have a containment
There's yours.
that's you don't have a containment that allows you to determine when and where you want to love, when and where you want to pour. Yes, God has given us responsibilities. He's given us a capacity, right? But what I'm trying to get to is that there's a control that we believe we have that leads us to believing that we either want to or we don't want to. We either can and we cannot by our own standards.
Sure.
And in that sense, I'm
Sure.
like, we don't have a cup.
Sure.
But if we realize that the love we are giving to our partners is the love that we have received, not the love we believe we've developed, then in that sense, I'm like, yo, bro, take 5 minutes and look at how much God loves you. And you will realize that you are doing your significant other injustice.
Sure.
You get what I'm saying? So from that point of view, I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't have a cup. But when it comes to giving, bro, male headship is chowing me. It's showing me flames because there are times I'm just like, I need a break, bro.
Yeah.
Not from the marriage. And I'm just like, I want to love on myself, dog. I want to sit in front of the TV and not
be
spend
a
time
leader.
in the word because I need to disciple my wife. I was like, I don't want to lead. Like in that moment, leadership is a political discourse.
Come on now.
It's a political phrase.
Hey,
Leadership.
come on. Keep program. It's a leadership program.
Yeah, no. In those moments, I'm like, nah.
Bro, it's been hard for me, man.
And that's just coming from 9 months. So, yeah. People should remember when they hear this side of the table, they're hearing 9 months. When it's that side, it's like, it's 9 years. So,
it's been rough, bro. And I think the rough thing is not how it looks like between me and my wife. Recently, I think that happened when we were trying to. I was asking the question, what is leadership? How does my leadership look like?
yeah.
I see. I was confused that whole week, and not confused cognitively only, but emotionally as well. I was left feeling. It's like, I don't know, bro. Am I leading? Am I not leading?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why, because of the answer that my wife gave. But when I started, male headship, as I understood it, was setting the framework for my family. And what that means is creating structures and rhythms that we would live according to, right?
Sure.
So when do we pray together? When do we read the Bible together? When do we go on holiday? When do we, go visit other people? When do we have people come to our house? How we spend our money, etc., etc. All the things that make up a family.
Yeah.
How do I then have an oversight of all those things and plan for them?
Shucks, you sound like a CEO.
Yeah, hundreds. You have to be.
Yep.
Come on now, and have a vision for where you want your family and your marriage to go to.
Sure.
And obviously, then in that case, you'll have to put things in place for you to achieve that goal, right? And that's fine, bro. Right? That's easy to do.
Yeah.
You can get a piece of paper and write all that stuff down and put your hand on it and pray about it, right? But it's
Put it under your pillow and sleep on it. So that via osmosis, when you're sleeping, diffusion.
Right? Manna.
Yeah.
And so it's how do we create structures and then have our wives and children flourish because of those structures?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Practically, Mfana, I don't know what that thing is. I just told you now, theoretically, right?
After the theory, you're just like, yeah, but practically speaking,
No, bro.
I don't know what this is. Yeah.
No, dog. Like,
Shucks.
practically speaking, angas, bro. I don't know, right? Have I... And here's the thing. It sounds like I have an idea of what, male headship is, and I just haven't executed the thing. It's not that I haven't executed it, right? But I think we sometimes speak of it at a very high level.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
because we men who
Yeah.
and we like structure and we like
I was about to
having
say,
vision.
considering that we pride ourselves with knowing, and
Yeah,
I mean, you
having
mentioned in the
knowledge.
previous podcast that listen,
Yeah.
I've been determined to like learn, know as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I'm like, now you know, but
Yeah. And when the rubber hits the road, bro,
Ah.
one, you're dealing with a human,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
Amen.
first and
Amen.
foremost.
Amen.
But secondly, you're dealing with a particular kind of human, right? Your wife is particular. My wife is particular.
and they're like creatives, so
bro,
there's no structure. Well, there is, but
and to some extent, you are creating structures, you know.
yeah.
But it's how you communicate those
Sure.
to your wife, and then she'll get it. She might even be clear on what you're saying. But again, bro, life happens.
Sure.
Right? So take simple one. Okay, this is how we're gonna organize the cleanliness of our house, right?
Sure.
So if our house is clean, it says something to us as people, as a couple, as a family. We are people who want to be clean. We want to live in an environment that's conducive, that frees our minds. We don't want clutter, but that also communicates something to people who come into our house, right? So that's the vision we have, right? And so how are we going to achieve this? Okay, when you finish with your mug, Prince, if there's no dishes, right, which it's during the day, there might not be any dishes. There's mostly dishes at the end of the day after we've cooked, we've eaten, there's dishes. But during the day, there aren't any dishes. Wash your thing, right? So that's the rule. That's a structure we've created.
Sure.
So that it achieves us being cleanly people, so that we can, flourish, think better, etc., right?
Yeah.
But I'm like, you gonna not clean that thing, dog, right? So then I come back, I'm frustrated that you didn't clean that thing, right? And then I'm like, what is, this chick is not following my structures. This chick is not, how are we gonna achieve the thing? Yeah? So I'm like, you can be there frustrated, constantly remind your wife of your structure, right?
Yeah.
She's gonna hate you.
Yep.
Right? And just be like, yo, it just feels like we're in prison, right? So practically for me, bro, and I remember saying this to David not long ago, I'm like, it just feels like the past 9 years, I have what I've just described as male headship. That thing needs the law to be sustained. But I'm dealing with a real human here, right? With real feelings.
Yeah.
So I've led with grace.
Yeah.
Do I bring out the law sometimes? Sure.
But
90% of my leadership has been grace. That thing is hard, bro.
it is, bro. And I think you mentioned grace, and I'm like, even before we get to extending grace, I'm just like that dynamic of providing structure, but then also allowing flexibility of that structure, and then molding it as it. I'm like,
Bro, you even more brilliant. You're molding it as it goes. I mean, after a while, I'm like, I don't even know where the thing is, bro. I'm just trying to love on my wife. I'm trying to give. I'm trying to, protect. I'm trying to, listen to her, see her. How do I help her flourish, grow, become the person that she is?
Yeah.
And then from time to time, I have like mental space to think about, okay, well, what is the structure in this thing, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm honest, I'm like, yo, bro, like once I'm thinking about the structure and I'm trying to put it back in place, something else is happening with my wife, right? So then I'm like, all right, it's fine, dog. Like we'll see structures in Fanak.
But now let me just extend grace.
Yeah, bro.
But I guess that's not such a bad thing to fall on.
It's not.
When the structure is not structuring.
It's not. It's just hard. And the reason why it's hard is because being a man, I want to be systematic. Being a man, I want to be structured.
Yeah.
Being a dude who's thinking this is what male headship is supposed to look like, and then everything in me is like, we're dealing with a real human here, right?
Yeah.
We're dealing with real people. My daughter, right? She's 4. She's becoming her own person. Her personality is developing, right? as a parent, I need to be setting structures. I can't.
That allow that personality to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that personality is bumping up against the structure the whole time.
Yo.
That personality is bumping up against the rules the whole time, right? Not sometimes, every day, every moment, bro. So
Now what more with a wife that's an entire adult?
Hundreds,
Yo.
bro. And I think that's where a lot of dudes crack.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
we come in, some dudes, like you're even starting at zero because you don't even know that you're supposed to have a structure. You don't even know that you're supposed to be creating a culture for your family. You don't even know that you're supposed to be creating the spiritual climate for your family, right? You don't even know any of this stuff. We privileged that we've engaged on the stuff. We've had men we've seen married who have done marriage before us. We've engaged them, right? Hundreds. So if you coming in at a zero with nothing, and then you somehow intuitively, because you're a dude, feel like, okay, you know, at work I have structure.
Yeah.
You know, in my own life when I was single, there was some level of structure. So if this thing is gonna work, I need to be directing my family, but you don't even know how to create that. And then your wife or your child's personality are just bumping up against your non-existent knowledge of what structures are. You freaking out, man. You're frustrated. You have structures in Fanaka. You have all this stuff. You trying to put... Dog, when my wife up and left, when I was sitting on the bed trying to read the Bible with her, it's because I was trying to set a structure for us, the spiritual climate of our family.
Sure.
She bumped up against that whole thing.
Shucks.
I'm like, Father, I could sit here, Ria says, get there, we need to do. But I'm like, Father, grace has been the only thing that I am holding on to. For me,
When
for
the structures
her,
don't work, yeah.
bro.
Shucks.
Bro.
And I'm trying to imagine what's going on in our minds, because we think very much alike, where we are so in tune with our thoughts and how things are theoretically that we sometimes have a bit of a gap between what we know and what is happening in reality.
Yeah.
Where because we've invested so much in learning, in knowing, in preparing, and then you get in.
Yeah.
The famous quote, you have a plan until
Till you
get
get
punched in
bro.
the face.
Yep.
You know? And I'm trying to imagine what's going on in our minds, because also the thing about life is that it doesn't wait for you to regroup.
Yeah.
As you said, structures are being blown out, but your wife is still wifing. She's still alive and she's still going through her own things.
Yeah.
Like, there's no time to rest. Like, there's no time to be like, yo, pause,
No, bro.
Nick Starch. Like,
Nope.
let's take a break.
Nope.
And I'm like, that's where I think us as husbands have to depend on God's grace.
Bro.
Where you're like,
Bro.
I know there's no break,
Bro.
but there's grace.
Bro.
Like, I can't take a break right now. I don't have the luxury of taking a break because my wife needs me. And it's not like, I don't want people to think we're saying when our wife needs us, it's something bad. Sometimes it's something good.
Yeah.
Where she needs your energy,
Yeah.
where she needs you to be invested. And you're like, I'm still trying to figure out what happened to that structure.
Mpana.
While you want me to be invested in your dreams, I'm still the PTSD of the structure that fell.
Even the dream. So your wife comes in, you married 9 months. She's had dreams all her life.
Bro.
You know, she's in her late 20s when you guys get married. You come in, you're like, yo, I want to help my wife realize her dreams. Part of the call over your life is so that you can be an aid to all that God has deposited in her.
Yep.
You need structures to make those dreams work.
Yeah, boy.
Right? That's just simple logic. If you're gonna achieve anything anywhere, there needs to be a clear plan.
Sure.
But again, you're dealing with a human here.
Yeah.
And this is not like work, bro. At work, we pull out the paycheck. If you're bumping up against the structures of this company, paycheck, mfanaka, right? Maybe you need to leave. Because here's what's at stake here. How, right? You're never going to do that.
No.
If your wife is bumping up against the structures,
there's no ultimatum, bro.
You have to sit there, dog, and think to yourself. I've heard you say this. I feel like I'm failing as a husband. Yeah,
Oh no, every day.
I feel like I'm flopping.
Every day.
And then I think, okay, so I'm measuring myself and my flops, nah? Based on what my understanding of my plan was, right?
Yeah.
So I'm measuring myself. So here's my plan.
Yeah.
Came in, I'm going to do this, right? And for me, day one of marriage, my plan failed.
Yeah.
Failed, right? When it comes to the spiritual aspect of our marriage.
Yeah, yeah.
My plan failed. Clean. And I'm like, after that, you're sitting thinking, okay, so do I say, hey, you have to do this. You have to sit down and read the Bible with me. Or we have to go on holiday only in July. Because that's the plan. Right? If she doesn't feel like it, if she's struggling, right? If she's at a place in her life where work is tough or her faith is shaky or, somebody close to her died, she's grieving. I'm like, bro, structure my 5-point plan.
I sometimes feel like, and I don't want to pin this on God, but I sometimes feel like we are allowed to know just so that we can say we know. But that's as far as it goes. Like,
Yeah.
it's not to say it exempts you or it puts you ahead, but I mean, in some respects it does. But I'm just like, sometimes you're like, knowing is not enough, bro. And that's where you just like, hear me having the knowledge of the structures, me having the foresight, me having the vision,
Yeah.
me having the dream of this kind of household. It's enough for you to say you tick the box.
Bro.
But when you are in it, when you are in the ring, and your wife is going through what she's going through, while you are going through what you're going
Bro.
through, I'm like, what must happen, bro?
Yeah.
Like, I look recently where my wife needed me emotionally, and I was struggling to provide that because I was going through my own things.
Your own stuff, yeah.
What was I going through? I was beating myself up for failing her as a husband while I'm failing her as a husband.
Life.
Like,
Life. Life. Life.
that's what I'm like. At any point, is there a break from this, bro? Where I'm just like, God, can I want to regroup.
Yep.
I want to regroup for this chick. I want to,
Yeah.
and it's just like, no, bro, just keep going.
You have to, bro.
Just keep going. Just keep depending on me and my provision, my grace for you.
Yeah.
That is sufficient. The mercy that is.
Yeah.
If we don't believe that,
Yeah.
we are stuffed, bro.
Yeah.
We are stuffed. Because I'm like, in and of myself, there's nothing that I can offer this chick.
Bro.
There is nothing that I can offer this chick.
And that's why I think, again, male headship is spoken of as sacrifice, spoken of as love.
Bruv.
Yeah, bro. And it's, again, it's not, we're not taking, and let me say this. I'm not taking away from the fact that as a husband, I need to have a plan. I should.
Yeah.
I should, right? And I need to regroup, restructure, reevaluate my plan.
Yeah.
I should have a plan. I should have a plan for, pursuing my wife. I should have a plan for our finances. I should have a plan for all these things. Will I have these things on me at all times? No, right? But at least I should be thinking about these things.
Yeah.
I should be trying to get to a point where I'm communicating to my wife what these things are.
Yeah.
But again, if male headship is loving and it's sacrificing, day to day, that's what it's gonna take, man. You need to sacrifice yourself, bro.
Whether you feel like it, whether you don't.
I heard somebody speak about leadership as, basically cementing your vision, your voice, your ideals, having a standpoint and saying this is who I am, this is what I do, this is what I live for, right? That's what leadership is. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I see that. What I understand to be male headship is that's 50% of the thing.
Sure.
The other 50% is there's a greater leader than me, right? And I need to follow him and his example. And his example was sacrifice. His example was dying. His example was not asserting his agenda, his will, his ways just by saying it.
He lived it, bro.
He died.
Like, that's the last thing you can do.
He's a servant, right?
Got spat on.
Because when we think of leadership, we think of kings.
Yeah.
When we think of leadership, we think of CEOs.
Gold.
When we think of leadership,
Comfort.
we think of the captain of the team, right? And sure, I'm saying that's part of what male headship is. You need to be a captain, you need to be a king, you need to have a plan. But 50% of that is saying, practically, at least, right? 100% I would say it's sacrifice.
Sure.
Right? If I have to quantify it, 100%
sacrifice.
it's sacrifice.
Yeah.
But practically, if I have to just put practicalities and divide the thing, I would say, sure, have a plan, write the stuff down. But the other 50% is knowing and allowing for yourself to realize that you're gonna knock walls, bro. The people that you're leading, in this case, your wife and your children, are gonna knock against you. And it's gonna be rough, right?
So you said the first 50% is?
Have your plan.
You know what? When you said that, what I thought of, I was like,
So I'm saying 100% male headship is sacrifice, it's loving. But if I have to put practicalities and just to paint a picture in more practical terms, I would say 50% of that 100% would be to have a plan.
I would say this. I'd go a step further in saying that 50% is having the plan. Male headship, 50% have the plan. 100% is sacrifice.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's 100%
No.
sacrifice.
It's 150%. Where I'm like, 50% is having the plan. That's the theory. But then you come on top of the 50%.
How you live it out. Bro, and that's the thing. That's the thing we're saying here, bro. Right? How to live this thing out, Buffett.
This thing is not easy.
100% is sacrifice. It's
whatever other percentage is allocated to 100% will always be sacrifice.
hundreds, bro.
You can only but add to the 100%.
Yeah.
You can't. It's not supposed to make sense arithmetically. Like, it's not.
If you're a husband and you're struggling with leading, and here's the thing, and maybe we should also speak about this, dudes who are passive, right? So if you're not a dude who's passive, you really want to lead your family, your wife, your kids, lovingly so, you want to sacrifice, and you're finding it hard. That's normal, bro.
Sure.
You are
doing the right thing.
You are a human. If you are cruising, I would say check yourself. You're probably passive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's no way.
And that provides so much comfort for the man that is intentionally trying to lead his wife. And he's like, I am struggling. Like, we are here to say that's how you know you're doing the right thing, bro.
That is normal, bro.
That's how you know that the rubber has hit the road.
It
There's
is.
heat.
So I said earlier on, to paint the thing maybe even more, I'm part of a group with 2 other couples. So there's 3 of us, 3 couples. And we meet, to encourage each other. We started this group over COVID. And we want to encourage each other, pray for each other, etc., etc. And so we're currently going through a book. And one of the chapters was speaking about men sharing their power and authority with their wives. Right? And I remember my wife saying, like, what is that? Like, what does that look like? what does this guy mean that you're sharing power?
What power
What
is this?
power are you sharing? Right?
What power do you have? Yeah.
I was like, okay, this means one of two things. One, I'm a pathetic leader. I suck. That my wife cannot even identify that I'm sharing authority with her. So I clearly don't have any
Shucks.
authority, right? One of the wives asked, where do you get this authority? Like, why do you even have, why would we assume you have authority, right? And obviously,
Yeah.
my answer to that would be whoever has called you into this thing. So if your family, your culture has called you, they've given you authority, right? I've said in previous episodes, I believe being called to marriage is a call from God. So God would give that authority, that power, etc. Right? So I'm like, the first possibility, I'm pathetic, right? Suck at this thing that my wife can't even tell.
That there was power here in the first place.
Yeah, right?
What
Totally.
power are you sharing? She's there like,
Yeah.
what power is this?
Yeah. when the power when
Yes, when a Powerpuff Girl.
okay, Queen, when I power when.
Yes, sir.
Secondly, I'm doing this thing well, and I say well very cautiously. It's just in comparison to the first option.
Yeah.
I'm doing this thing
So well that
my wife is like, yeah, sure, man. It's not a thing. Like, I don't have to think that it's sharing power with me. It's just so natural. It's part
which
of.
conclusion do you did you reach if you
So I told you earlier on, I was confused emotionally for a whole week.
Oh, that's not confused.
For a whole week. Right? And that's how I then reached the conclusion that I've been leading with grace for the past 9 years. Have I been leading? Yes, I have. Right?
That's good.
I have, bro. I have been leading, but I've led with grace. 2 episodes ago, when we spoke about how my wife bounced, I remember saying there that I was in the house thinking I don't have capacity to respond like how I've seen other dudes respond. And again, it wasn't because I thought I was amazing, but I was like, it's because of the grace I've experienced.
Yeah.
And I need to choose my wife. I need to love my wife. I need to hear her out, protect her, even in this situation, right? I'm not fighting my wife.
Yeah.
I'm fighting the things that are threatening our marriage. Right?
Sure.
Threatening our bond and our union. And so I'm like, I think because I've led with grace, which is hard, bro. And the reason why it is hard, again, is it's a trip in the mind when everything in you as a man is saying rules need to be adhered to. Rules need to be followed. Right? The law needs to reign above everything. But I break the law myself.
Sure.
Right? And if I'm gonna rule with an iron fist and always remind my wife of her failures, this thing is gonna end. But it is hard to not remind her of the law. It is hard to not remind myself of the law and to be gracious to myself as I'm gracious to my wife. It is hard.
So
right?
yeah. I'm thinking when you say it's hard, I'm thinking the difficulty that I'm also identifying is in how the male ego taints
Yeah.
headship.
Yeah.
Where if I've put structures in place,
Yeah.
the righteous conclusion should then be, listen, allow your wife, but then more often than not, it's you don't see me, do you? You don't rate me. And then after feeling that disrespect, then you have to then go back and show grace.
Yep. Passivity, bro, on that. No? You start off, you 9 months. You start off clear vision, you're happy, this thing is exciting, I'm gonna finally be a husband, I'm doing this stuff. You put the rules. So even in how I communicated with my wife
Yeah.
about my structure. Right? It wasn't like, okay, let's sit down, have a formal meeting.
Yeah,
Here's
yeah.
what the structure of this house is going to be. I know dudes who do that, and their wives are wired that way, and
Yo,
they
I
speak
tried
that
that.
way.
It flopped. Yeah.
No, hundreds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Done. Like my wife is leaving. Forget it. Right? So part of what male headship is and leadership is understanding the wiring of my wife
Yeah.
and finding ways to communicate with her that are not gonna be off-putting unnecessarily.
Yeah.
So that the next couple of minutes as we sit here are super awkward and
Yeah.
then we have to deal with this awkwardness for the next 2 years, right? I'm like, I have to find ways of speaking to my wife in a way that she's going to understand, in a way that's loving
Shucks.
for her, right? So all of that to say, you come in, then you have the structures, you're speaking to your wife, etc., in ways that she understands and gets it, right? And then she just does what a human does, which is what you'll do, right? You'll fail to keep some of the rules that you put in the house, right?
Yeah.
And she bumps up against your structure, right? The other response, one is to obviously be angry, rule with the law, right? But the other response is, I've tried, man. It's clearly this thing,
Yeah.
this chick doesn't listen,
Yeah. Oh no.
And then you passive.
No, definitely.
You done.
Definitely.
You passive, right? And then if
And
your
you like
wife,
pat yourself on the back, like
yeah, I tried it. Yeah. Me
No one
either.
can say I didn't try.
No, yeah, she can't even say I didn't try. And that's why leading with grace is hard.
Shucks, bro.
Because my heart naturally wants to sway to either side. I want to sway to, this is the law. You want to
Yeah,
listen to
yeah,
me.
yeah.
Stuff this. Household is rubbish. I'm the leader, right? Or the other way. I tried. Told me I'm done. You know? But leading with grace is saying, I'm not going to be a tyrant. I'm not going to be the passive dude.
Passive one either.
Right? I need to be hearing, listening, choosing. I need to lower my guard when it comes to what's the thing that judges have? The gavelin, right? I need to lower that, right? And talk to my wife. I need to love on her. I need to see her. Extending grace is hard, bro. Right? And so I realized then when my wife was saying like, and she said her words to her defense, that's not how we've lived out our marriage, as here's Black, who's the head of the household, and he's gonna set all the rules, and we're gonna have to follow the rules. He's like, but she's like, we've never done that. Like, that's not how we think.
And she's probably referring to that partnership that you guys always exercise.
and she's like, I mean, we've always spoken about stuff.
That's
We've
rooted in the
always-
friendship.
Yeah, So in that again, and I think I was tripping up because
Yeah.
So when the book says share power with your wife, we need to clearly iron what that looks like. So,
and you always thought, what does it not mean? Yeah.
And so when she's like, what is that? I'm like, what? So we don't have a clear definition for this thing. And then listening to my wife later on and then coming to the conclusion that I've been leading with grace, I'm like, no, man, we have a definition. And that's what my wife said. I don't see this thing as black and white as this book says.
Yeah.
But like, man, we've been partners the whole time, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, cool. Like, and I had to then realize it's fine, man. I haven't held my playbook, with my plan for how I'm gonna sustain my marriage the whole time, and my strategy of how I'm gonna get there. But I think it's just always being aware of it at a very high level, and whenever we both bump into that, how do I then come back and press in? How do I then just slow down what's going on? So that I can be there for my wife in ways that she needs, as opposed to ways I think are beneficial for her.
Sure.
Because I could think of a million good things that are beneficial.
Yeah.
But is that what she needs now? Right?
Yo.
Is that what's gonna help her grow in that moment? Is that what's gonna help our marriage flourish, right? So I can have a list of rules, bro.
Yeah.
Okay, my wife is depressed, right? What's good for her in this moment? What's good for her is that I need to be, throwing the Bible at her. What's good for her is that I need to, every time she wakes up, just lay hands and pray hard. What's good for her is that you need to go out into the sun. Or I can sit there and be like, I say, who is she? What has happened? What's causing this thing right now for her to feel tripped up?
Yeah.
How can I make sure that I speak to her in a way now that's gonna help her see that she's seen, but that's gonna empower her to move closer to me as I move closer to her, so that our marriage would flourish even in this dark season.
Yeah.
And that is hard, bro. That's hard, bro.
Yo.
That's hard.
I almost feel guilty for putting this out there for the conversation, but I'm like, to those who are wondering if leading with grace is not weak or doesn't look weak.
Yeah.
How do we how do we close off with that?
Yeah.
Like, leading with grace is not a sign of weakness or doesn't mean you don't have the authority in your home, or at least the authority you've been given. How do we have that conversation?
Yeah, 100%.
Because I think we speak about leading with grace, about how we have structure, but then the people who we put those structures for bump against the boundaries or bump against the guardrails, and it's not in delinquency, or it's not in disregard for...
It's not malicious, bro.
It's not malicious. It's just your structures aren't... Like, they're not absolute. Like, they're not... They didn't fall down from the sky and perfectly land on
and
your
these
wife.
are humans who are figuring themselves out, just like you.
Exactly. But how do we have that conversation, and how do we reassure men that leading with grace is actually the best way possible? Because it is tough, bro. It is. And I recently heard someone speaking about male headship in light of the greater leader. Like, it's like there's a lion and there's a lamb to this thing, bro. There's an aggression and there's a boldness, but there's also a gentleness. There's a love. There's a peace. Like, how do we navigate that?
Yeah.
As husbands today in South Africa, in Joburg, what does leading with grace look like?
Yeah.
When you are there with a wife that is a CEO or a wife that is an artist, where it's just like, listen, she's a boss, bro, and you need to kind of cater to that. What does it mean for you?
Yeah. So, and maybe two things, because I think that's an amazing question. Maybe two things to prime my answer. But one, so saying that it's hard to lead with grace does not mean I don't love my wife.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'm not enjoying the call of leadership that I've been giving.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I just feel like, this is duty and I have to do it just to sustain my marriage. Right? Doesn't mean that at all.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, bro, we enjoy shooting this podcast, but it's hard. Right?
Yeah.
And sure, and that's probably very, like, in lesser degrees compared to marriage. Yeah. So I say it's hard because I think that's the sobering reality for me recently, right? But I enjoy spending time with my wife. I enjoy growing because of the hardness of leading with grace.
Yeah,
You know, I see how it's making me a better husband, a better father, a better friend, a better leader. And I think, again, if I have to choose between passivity or ruling with an iron fist, I'm always choosing grace, bro. Right?
Sure.
That no questions asked. Right?
Yeah.
And the second thing is, because naturally, I'm gonna be passive, and I say naturally. We've seen how our society has turned out to be because men have been passive, right? So it's a whole conversation that we can have.
And are being pacified.
Yeah, right? Hundreds. But But at least from my worldview, right, I'm passive because as a man, because I'm born that way.
There's a natural disposition.
There's a natural disposition, and this does not mean I don't take responsibility, because even after my birth, I continue to choose to be passive.
Sure.
And if I'm being called to marriage by God, God is working that passivity out of me.
Sure.
And in His wisdom, He saw it fit that He will work out my passivity out of me
This
through marriage.
institution. Yeah.
Right? Could He have worked it out in other ways? Probably could have. And this speaks to who it is that I'm following as a leader. Right? So if I'm following myself and my own agenda and my own ways of doing life, then sure, right? I'll have a different purpose for why I'm married. But part of the reason why I've been called to marriage is because I'm having my passivity, my laziness being worked out of me, right?
Sure.
And so leading with grace is forcing me to do that, right? Do I have a propensity to rule with an iron fist?
Large one.
I do, but just experientially, I'm not wired that way. I'm not the dude who's going to come into a room and want to have the loudest voice, right?
Said one Zulu man ever.
Hey, hallelujah.
One.
But my natural disposition from an experiential level is being passive.
Yeah.
But I think generally men tend to have that.
No, definitely. Yeah,
As
it's not
as
just the Zulu
opposed-
thing. Yo,
Yeah, no.
actually, it's not. It's yay.
As opposed to,
Yeah.
the alpha male having a lot
Yeah,
of bravado. We see dudes like that, but if we'd have to like really put numbers, there's more dudes who are passive than dudes who would want to go out and go fight with lions, right?
And I'm on the passive side in case anyone is wondering.
Hundreds.
Hey.
There's more dudes who are passive than dudes who want to fight bears and
Yeah.
lions and carry guns and go into war.
No
right?
shame. We love the soft life.
No, hundreds, right?
Love it soft. Yeah.
So I think I have to, just preface my answer with those two things first. That saying it's hard doesn't mean that there isn't any joy, goodness, happiness, fulfillment in that.
Yeah.
And secondly, God is working my passivity out of me. Right?
Yeah.
Through me leading with grace.
Sure.
So is it weakness? It's not. I think the best word to describe it is meekness and not weakness.
Ooh,
come on now.
Bars.
And the thing with meekness is you have the ability, the capacity,
Yeah.
right, to rule with an iron fist.
Yes, sir.
And maybe that's in a negative sense, right? But you have the capacity to throw your weight around because you have it, right? If I have to be blunt, right? I'm taller than my wife, stronger than my wife physically. Do I have the capacity to just like throw my weight around in the house?
Yeah, you can.
Sure, right? Is that marriage gonna suck? It's gonna suck,
100%.
right? But meekness is saying I'm choosing, and especially because I know that I'm flawed.
Yeah.
Especially because I know that I'm broken.
Yeah.
I am choosing not to rule with an iron fist. I'm choosing not to always throw the law in my wife's face.
Yeah.
I am choosing not to always remind my wife of the structure.
Yeah.
I am choosing to not remind my wife of her failures. I'm choosing, right? What am I choosing? I am choosing to listen. I am choosing to love. I'm choosing to sacrifice myself. I am choosing to live with the hardness of living with leading from a point of grace. I am choosing all of that.
And it sounds like you're swimming upstream, which is definitely
So I'm not
a sign
passive.
of strength.
Because if I'm passive, then I'm letting my wife, my daughter's
Yeah.
personalities that are growing and bumping up against the structure, I'm just sitting there and letting that happen and not responding. That's being passive. But I am choosing to respond. I am choosing to take action and respond, right? And say, hey, girls, I think let's not do that. Let's do this. Okay, cool. Maybe today is not the time to remind them that we shouldn't and we should. Maybe today is just the time to say, I think let's just go out and have ice cream, right?
Yeah, for dinner. Doesn't make sense. doesn't align with our diet and our plan.
Yeah, listen, like it's gonna be rough, right? We might wake up with heavy stomachs.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
We'll deal with that.
We'll
then.
deal with that.
Right
Let's-
now, I just want to
let's do
hear
that.
you.
Yeah.
So then going back to the second part of the question, which is then how do we lead women who are strong in today's world and by today's standards? You mentioned once in the previous podcast, you guys studied film, your wife is a director. In the word, there's
a
authority. She's our boss. Listen, she's been trained
Yeah.
to have that authority. How do you as a man, I don't even want to say create structures, but how do you lead a woman like that? Because there are men out there that are married to a boss babe, you know,
Yeah.
and we thank God for these strong women in corporate
bro.
or in whatever profession they're in.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that?
Your wife is a boss, babe.
She's our boss.
Bro.
Yeah.
But the thing is understanding where she exercises that role in which institution. She's a boss at work. And that's the role
And
she's
you have to
playing.
graciously remind her when she gets home that
And again, each institution in society has its own structure and order,
Yeah.
right? And so in corporate, there's reasons why people attain the specific roles they have, right? If we being gracious, other people buy them. But anyway,
yeah, we won't go there.
but let's say it's purely on merit, right? Let's say it's purely on hard work. Then there's clear guidelines of how you get there, right?
Sure.
Just get your degree. If you want to get a better salary, get your honors, your masters, whatever, right? Move up the ranks.
Yeah,
There's clear structures
Sure,
of how to get to the quote unquote top, right? And if my wife is that at work, that's fine. There's rules at work.
You can be a
There's
director
ways.
on set.
Yeah. But when we come to our marriage, again, at work, they'll speak of value. At work, they'll speak of importance. At work, they'll speak of merit and how much you put.
Yeah.
So when we get to my house, we're not speaking of merit. We're not speaking of value. We're not speaking of the work that you've put in. We're not, right? So she's not being called to be a wife because she's somehow done work to be a wife. And
Yo.
I've done work to be a husband. No, right? But again, and those roles, again, are assigned by gender. I was born this way. God made me this way. We got into marriage. I'm the dude. You the chick.
These are the responsibility. Yeah.
I've been given this role. You've been given that role, and purely because, again, many reasons, but maybe to kind of cement this. One, the person who's called us into marriage is trying to work certain things out of us, right? So passivity is being worked out of me, right? And that's what I've been called to do, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So
yeah.
so the roles that we occupy here are not based on the same rules and standards that are at work. We operate with different rules. Just like we would go to a different institution, let's say church. It's a different institution. Or let's say the golf club.
Sure.
Right? It's a different institution. Those will have different rules, different ways of how you get to whatever position that you occupy there.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing we need to understand, right? And I think part of the conversation around submission or male headship has been tainted by people crossing
Wanting to, yeah.
the
Cross-pollination.
crossing the standards of how you determine the various positions in the different institutions. Keep those standards there.
And it's probably the reason why even male headship can be abused.
Yeah.
It's because in the corporate space,
Exactly.
you want to take...
Exactly. Mpana, thanks for bringing that up, right? You can be a managera, right? Go spanning. When you come home, you're a servant. Mpana.
Hot.
That's who you are, bro. And not because you've done anything less.
No.
That's what you've been called to. That's the rule. What's the rule? You've been called. How do I occupy my servanthood? You've been called. There's nothing you did. It's not that you're a flop of a human.
What are the
therefore we call-
KPIs you've been called?
You've been called, bro. You've been called to be a servant to your wife, to serve,
To
to
wash
sacrifice,
her feet.
to love her,
Yeah.
to present her holy and you've been called to do that,
That's it.
and it's a privilege. She's been
That's
called
it?
to respond, to respect, and to submit. Why? She's been called.
Cold.
That's the thing, right? There's no other. Yeah, no, bro. The rules that apply in corporate SA don't apply in my house, right?
You've been
'Cause
called, you answered,
There's
let's
two
go.
different bosses. There's two different purposes there,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
Two different kinds of leadership styles. Two different kinds of submission styles, right? In corporate, you submit because that's your line manager. That's who. If you don't, there's consequences to your pockets. Here, if you don't, yo, man, let's sit down and talk about this thing. Let's lead with grace. Right? I'm not calling my wife for a disciplinary hearing. She's not calling me for that, right? But we're reminding each other, yo, man, listen, I don't think you're playing a role, and this is how it's affecting the stuff, right? Affecting our marriage. And so let's rehash what is happening in your heart. But here I'm like, yeah, we can do some of that in corporate, which I've heard of other companies that have, how they look after their people's mental well-being and et cetera, et cetera,
Employee
et cetera.
wellness and whatnot, yeah.
But that's with the purpose of meeting the bottom line. It could be good, but if we strip out everything and say, why is this?
If it had a sole purpose,
But I'm here to make money in corporate SA, dog. That's why I've established
Yeah,
the business, dog.
yeah.
And everything has to meet that.
yeah.
I'm not trying to make money here, right? I'm trying to. My wife has to be the best human that God has made her to be, right?
Yeah.
She wants that for me.
Yeah.
That's us succeeding. That's us being the best.
Yes.
And we're gonna reach that differently than how corporate is gonna reach their targets, right?
Sure.
And so we can't apply the same rules, bro, right? So that's one. But secondly, I'm like, I'm not threatened just as a human by the gifts my wife has been given.
Ooh.
That's
We need to hear that as men.
I'm not threatened, dog.
Yeah.
Right? My wife is a director on set, right? And even if you think of that, right? I studied music and sound designing, right? And sure, if we have to talk about film, right? People normally think, the sound designer is just at the back. But try and listen to a film with no sound, and then we'll talk, right? It's
not a film, bro.
And tell me that we're not important.
It's not a film.
But on set, when you walk on and you see the sound designer or the sound guy, right?
Yeah.
You'll think, sound guy, whatever, right? The director is important. Hundreds, right? You see her, she's directing the thing, she wrote the movie, etc.,
Yeah.
etc. That's fine. There's just the rules are applied differently. The value that people place on those two characters are different, right? Compared to how we would operate in our marriage,
Yeah.
right? So I'm like, it's fine, dog. Me and my wife have been on sets together, and it's like, okay, I'm the sound guy. If she tells me to move, I'm gonna move out of shots. If she tells me, hey, your boom is falling in here, you're the boss on set, your boom is falling. So I'm not threatened. I am doing my job.
Yeah.
Doing it well and excellently so, right? And I'm gonna kill it to the best of my abilities.
I
You
can
have
see
to
the
kill
men
it.
cringing when you say that.
You have to kill your job. We're here. What is the goal here on set? Is to make money. And how we're gonna make money? I'm playing my role, you playing your role. When we go home, I'm like, yo, man, we're not
Different context.
assessing each other based on money and whatever the thing is. And that's been a blessing for me and my wife, having always worked together.
Sure.
That we know when we at work, let's work, right? And we've always been conscious of how we don't let our relationship affect our work, right?
Sure.
So let's say we're fighting. Let's not bring that to the set. Let's not bring that on the job, right? It's fine. People don't need to be knowing. We civil, blah, blah, blah. We can hash the thing out when we get home, right? But let's not let that affect our work, and vice versa.
Yeah.
If we fight on the set, fight at work, or we're doing music, we're fighting on stage, We fought on stage, dog. Right? We fought about the lights and the sound and get on stage, smile, perform, go backstage, fight about the lights. But when we get home, you're not the musician. I am not the director, the rapper, whatever, right? I'm your husband, you're my wife, right? We can compartmentalize and leave that stuff and deal with it the way we have to deal with it, right?
Shucks.
So anyway.
But being able to facilitate that dynamic in the relationship, I'd say, was a good sign of leadership on your side. Like being able to come to a point where you just like, this is how these are the rules of engagement.
Yeah.
And having had, I'm like, that is, when I get to 9 years, I want to be able to say such.
But it is with grace, bro.
Yeah.
Again, it's because of grace, So I'm like, I told my wife, I'm like, girl, we need to separate the two, bro. And know when to deal with which and how we deal with that.
Yeah.
Because again, I'm like, you are my goal. I'm winning you. I want you to flourish. I want to see you thrive. And what's the best way for us to achieve that, right? Just compartmentalize. Let's do that. And sure, that was a structure, which until now I wasn't conscious of.
Yeah.
That I was putting a structure. I was just leading.
Yeah.
But I wasn't conscious that this is a structure, right?
Yeah.
That every time we at work or at home, this is how we're gonna function. But I'm like, it's a conversation we're having, and maybe that's what she meant, that power has always been equally shared. But yeah.
Yo, hectic. So I think on my side, then looking at the first part of the question, which is around weakness and now meekness.
Yeah.
I think on my side, I realize that if I am tempted to think of leading with grace as weakness, there's an incoherence in my thinking where I'm like, first of all, you are one person that prides themselves in progress. You love seeing growth. That only happens with change. So if you think coming with a structure that is fit, that is set, and adhering to that as a sign of strength or as a sign of progress and growth, you are gravely mistaken.
Yep.
Because even by your own human standards, for you to see the progress, for you to see the change, which then translates into strength, there needs to be a change. There needs to be a dynamic moving at all times where you come with a structure, but it's one that is malleable.
Yeah.
It's one that allows for growth. It can expand, it can shrink. It can be long, it can be short. It can be high, it can be low.
There's a term to describe that kind of structure. I forgot it, dog, but if I remember it, I'll ask you. But a structure that collapses in itself to rebuild itself. Right?
Ooh.
So the structures that when there's too much weight, they just collapse. Finished, right? And then there's a structure that I forgot what the phrase is, man, but it's exactly what you're describing, dog. That the thing will expand, right? Because it's being stretched. But the expansion is what makes it stronger, right? It collapsing is what makes it stronger because it knows how to rebuild itself because of the collapse. So the collapse has to happen. So it's designed for collapse. It's designed for stretching. Right?
Yeah.
And that is what makes it grow. That's what keeps it stronger. So if it doesn't stretch, if it doesn't collapse, if it doesn't break, then it doesn't grow, it doesn't become strong. It will actually be weak. So you have to have things bumping up against it so that it collapses to grow again, so that it stretches to be stronger.
It dies so that it can live. Guys,
Come on
9 years, 9 months.
It dies
We
so
are
that it
repres-
lives, dog.
Man, I'm done with the first part of the question. I don't want to add, I don't want to remove. That's it. And then the second part, which is in the boss babe. It's like when you're like, I want a woman that'll challenge me until she challenges you. Being new, being the 9 months of this conversation, I realized the weight of leading a woman like that.
Yeah.
Where I chose my battles. Let me put it that way, right? I'm like, I wanted a boss babe, but there's joy. Don't hear me saying that I'm in pain. There's so much joy. As I just said now, speaking about progress, growth, and all, I am growing, whether I want to or whether I don't want to. I have to grow because I'm married to a person that is a boss lady. My wife is in the legal fraternity, so from an education point of view, like her acumen is just.
Yeah.
My wife does things with her mind that I could never.
She moves plates.
Like my wife's mind has been crafted in such a way that my mind will never comprehend. Like I am naturally creative. I'm out there. Don't hear me speaking about structure and think I'm an engineer. I'm a dropout of engineering, of mechanical engineering. I mean, I loved it. I did well. But I was just like, it's not me, you know? But my wife has been crafted in such a way that she's a boss and she's able. And that's why I can never look at any part of scripture and try and like determine value based on what if I wanted to, my wife's value is higher than mine. if I wanted to, right?
Sure.
But the one thing I've realized is, I think to the point that you made earlier, or nuance to the point you made earlier, there's no better way to show strength than to lead a person like this, make sure that they flourish, and still feel content with your manhood and your masculinity.
Sure.
I heard someone say that there's nothing stronger than a fighter walking away from a fight. When you are built and when you were created for that context, and you're like, no,
let's not do this.
Let's not do this. When you've got the black belt and a random tempo comes up, and you're like, Sepana, let's not do that, bro. Let's have a drink, bro. There's nothing stronger than a fighter walking away from a fight. And I've realized that for me as a husband, there's nothing stronger than me not flexing the authority, me not quoting, and me not enforcing the Ephesians 5. Even if I wanted to, it forces itself back on me, you know. But
8 verses are for you, my dog.
8 of them are for me, you know. But there's nothing stronger than me allowing my wife to flourish, become the best version of whatever God has created her to be, and me being content with seeing her flourish. I often tell my wife that how people will know that I'm a good leader is when they look at you.
Yeah, 100%.
In our house. Not what I've achieved.
0.
If they look at me and they see me struggling, if they see me sacrificing professional professional ranking, or if they see me letting go of certain dreams, but all of that is against the backdrop of a queen.
Come on now.
That has rightfully claimed her.
Come on now.
I'm good, dog.
Come on.
I can die with a smile. Like I can legit be like, I've played my part. Yeah. So I think for me, when it comes to then leading a boss babe, that for me has always been key. Like making sure that my wife can realize her potential, can realize her calling, and me being content with continuously giving, continuously dying, for her to realize that, because again, I know what I've been called to do.
100%.
And I don't confuse the two.
100%.
You know, what happens in corporate can happen. Listen, in corporate, I go higher by pushing, by forcing, by asserting. At home, it's by dying, by giving.
Come on now.
By crying.
Taking your cross, my man.
Pick it up.
Done.
Yes, sir.
Done.
Yes, sir.
Done.
Nah, that's
done.
Sure. I feel like this episode has been therapy, dog.
Hey, my man. Yeah. I think it's given me better language to speak to my wife about what I think my leadership is.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've never questioned that I was leading. And the reason why I didn't question it is because I just did the thing. You know?
Yeah.
Until that Thursday. And I was like, maybe I've been lying to myself. So I think what this conversation has done is to say, no, man, like, just wake up, dog. You've been doing the thing. It's just, again, I've realized and sobered up to the reality of how hard it is.
Yeah.
And it gives me better, language and framing to further have the conversation with my wife.
Yeah, because I think if anything, this conversation has given a name to what I didn't know was,
Sure.
which is leading with grace, where we
Sure.
speak about the tyranny versus the passivity. And the center or the middle ground is grace.
Yeah, bro.
And I'm just like, I didn't know that's what it was called. And I think seeing it across the table, 9 months, I'm like, it gives hope. I'm not going to lie, where I'm just like, shucks, so if I continue in this way, there's light at the end of the tunnel, you know? And not that we're going through, but I run the risk of speaking about marriage like, yo, now it's, tibang, you know?
Nah.
But just to say that, listen, Prince, what you're doing is right, bro.
Yeah,
If you continue seeing your brokenness and how God is using
Yeah,
that
yeah.
and how God is working out the passivity while also not leading you to tyranny,
Yeah.
just keep on keeping on.
Dope, bro.
Keep on keeping on.
Dope, man.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah. That's been great.
We've said grace so many times. I'm sure Grace
What's
is
up,
just
Grace?
like, Grace is just like, yay, I've got shares in this conversation.
Yeah, I wanted to make a final note though, and I don't want to be long, but just this idea of boss babes, and I know what we mean by that, and I think people know, but I'm like, yeah, see, man, it's not. Boss babes also suggest that there's women who are not bosses, and I think all women are bosses.
Amen.
You know, and I think
Amen.
being raised by a mom, seeing my wife give birth, I remember thinking that day, Jassy, like, when my daughter was born, I was in the room. We did a water birth. It's on our channel if you want to see it. But I remember thinking, dog, a man who abuses a woman, like that, anyway, let me rephrase that. A dog.
I was going to end that sentence.
A dog who abuses
That's good. You start there.
a woman is nothing but a dog. Right? You see the power that women have when they're giving birth. They've carried life. And when they give birth, bro, I remember being in that room and thinking to myself, if you don't see like them mirroring God as image bearers, I'm not saying a woman is God. No, God is God.
Bro.
But women and men are made in the image of God, and we mirror him, we image him. And when I saw my wife give birth, I was like, Jassy, like, I see you mirror God, but this was
Not like this.
nah, bro. And therefore, I'm like, yeah, we can call boss babes because they're CEOs, but I think women are bosses because they're women.
I was about
Right.
to say, because I'm like, I'm on the other side where I'm like, I haven't seen my wife give birth. She hasn't conceived. I haven't seen her go through that struggle. But on a daily basis, I remember speaking to Simba about this, and we're like, we cannot, with our intellectual prowess, comprehend how women,
No, bro. No.
how girls,
No.
girl. Like, I'm seeing it now with the work that my wife is doing, working with young women. I'm like, I cannot understand how you can come from a context like this, how you can live in a world like this,
Yeah.
and still be a woman.
Yeah.
Your values, your morals those are besides the. I'm like, I don't understand how.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm just like, even before seeing her give birth, even before seeing her usher life
No, hundreds,
into
bro.
this world, I'm like,
100.
these, if we cannot see the value that these women hold and we
Yeah.
go as far as abusing,
And listen, dog, if I'm sober and I'm honest, you know, I don't think anyone wakes up thinking I'm going to be an abuser.
no.
So the stuff that happened to that dude as well, right? Doesn't justify at all. It
Yeah,
doesn't justify
yeah.
at all. So I'm like, dog, we can have that conversation some other time. But if you've been, whatever has happened to you, has messed you up so much that you would lay a hand on a woman or not appreciate her, you need all the help in the world. because women are just bosses, bro.
Thank you, guys.
Peace, man.